I'm Hannah Howard, the Director of Business Services and Advocacy for the Greater Muscatine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. As part of our Startup Muscatine initiative, we have created a video series to help entrepreneurs and small business owners in their business journey. This video is focused specifically on starting a business in Muscatine, and we've invited local attorney Nathan Mather to join us and walk through the legal steps of forming a business. So Nathan, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure, Hannah. Thank you very much. Like Hannah said, I'm Nathan Mather. I'm an attorney with Stanley, Lande Hunter here in Muscatine. My wife, my whole family, and I were from Muscatine originally, and we've made this our home, a place we wanted to raise our kids and really invest ourselves in. And it's been great. I think this is a wonderful town. It's a wonderful place to be, and it's a great business environment as well. I do some business formation work. I do help people with acquisitions, with managing their businesses, dealing with the legal challenges, as well as some compliance work, and of course other things that a small town lawyer does, which is a little bit of everything. I'm happy to help folks with whatever they have, but really helping people get businesses off the ground is one of the things I really enjoy, because not only does it make a difference to them, but you can really see the impact in the community, and it's just a wonderful thing to say, hey, I helped get that business going. Not that I'm doing the hard work that they're doing, but that you have played a small part in helping grow the community. It's a great feeling.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for agreeing to share your knowledge and expertise with us. And you're right, there are a lot of really wonderful and amazing small businesses that have started in Muscatine, and a lot that have started a long time ago and now become huge corporations. So Muscatine really does have a great business environment. So let's start with some of the basics. What is the most common question you get about starting a business?
Well, can you help me? A lot of people don't know what to do. I think the process is a little bit intimidating because there's a lot of paperwork, and people think you need a lawyer to do it. And for a lot of it, you really do. LegalZoom is big out there, and I don't have a problem with a lot of those kind of do-it-yourself things. A lot of those things are doing it yourself. But if you're anything like me, when it comes to, say, putting together a bookshelf from IKEA, do-it-yourself is kind of a dirty word. You might get the instructions, but then you're sitting there with all the parts and you have absolutely no idea what to do. Folks come to me, they're either they don't want to start a business, or they're hesitant because they're afraid of all the steps, or else they've started a business and they haven't done everything that they need to do in order to protect themselves. And really, businesses come in all shapes and sizes. There's really no time that it's too early to start protecting yourself, and that's really what a business structure is about. That's really what the lawyer can do. I can't tell you if your cupcakes are going to sell, or if your tech startup is going to sell for $1 billion or whatever, but I can help you make sure that you observe the law and get yourself the legal protections that'll benefit you, your customers, and if you ever want to sell your business, those folks as well.
Sure. So what is the most common mistake you see when it comes to business formation?
The most common mistake to forming a business is not forming a business. See, I talked a little bit about the advantages, and really, first and foremost, it's limited liability. So if you own a business, and I don't know, pick something for me, Hannah. What do you like to own a business in your dream world?
I would love to own a plant shop.
A plant shop. Okay, so you own this, Hannah's wonderful plant shop. And one day you're hoisting a palm tree into place on your second story window, and somebody slips, the palm tree falls, and horribly wounds somebody on the outside. You're liable. If you don't have a business set up, then not only can they come after your business, but they can come after everything that's in your name personally.
Wow.
Your home, your car, very few things will be exempt. So really, if you don't have a business, it's possible that you could lose everything. The best way I like to talk about it is, imagine you have all of your things sitting out on a table, and you create a business. You put everything in a nice little box. You put everything that takes care of the business in a box, and anything that deals with the business, anything cost or exposure related, is limited to what's in that box. So you don't lose everything else that's on the table.
Sure.
That's one of the nice things about it. And when people don't do that, they can really get themselves into a lot of trouble. And that can be, for even the very smallest business. A lot of folks have a rental property on the side, for instance. And when I talk to them, I say, oh yeah, we own that in our name. And I say, well, what happens if someone slips and falls? And all of a sudden, not only are you losing the rental property, you're losing your stuff as well. So setting up something as simple as a single member LLC, a limited liability, they're those magic words, company, is very easy. It's relatively inexpensive given the amount of protection you get. For instance, I don't quote this because I'd have to check our fee sheet, but I think we do it for around $700 or $750. And that's not just getting you set up with the state, but that's making sure we do all the proper filings. That's actually filing it with the state, creating an operating agreement that's necessary. Generally, most banks are going to want one of those before they give you a loan. Setting you up with a tax identification number, because amazingly enough, Uncle Sam does like to get paid on these things.
Of course.
So we try and handle all that and really get people going, and then they can hit the ground running and have one less thing to worry about.
Sure. So taking a step back, what do you recommend people can do for themselves? And then when do you recommend they start engaging with an attorney?
Well, it's never too early to start engaging with an attorney, and I say that not just because I am an attorney, but I think the most important thing you need to do is have an idea. If you have an idea, that's going to carry your business, and that really gets into the economics, the nuts and bolts of starting a business. But your attorney can help you understand what needs to be done to start that business, but also what kind of legal regulations and challenges that business might face. For instance, if you want to open up a restaurant or a place that sells liquor, you have to navigate the liquor licenses. If you want to start a gas station, you've got probably tobacco licenses. If you want to buy a piece of property, you probably want to know if there's toxic waste or something under it that could get you into a lot of trouble. So really, the time is as soon as you have the idea. Generally, if you have a go-to attorney, that's going to really help you figure out if your business is worthwhile. Because what would stink is if you get this great idea, you spend 6 months planning for it, investigating it, investing your life into it, and then you realize, crap, that's not going to work. So the attorney can help you navigate those challenges and resolve them ahead of time. So that's really the best time.
So a big question for entrepreneurs starting in business is business structure. So we already started talking about that a little bit, but can you walk us through the options and then pros and cons for each of those?
Sure. So there are quite a few options. It used to be a lot more complex, how you would decide to create your business structure. The laws, fortunately, and this is a rarity for laws, have simplified the process. And the way I say that is because back in old-timey England, you could form a stock corporation. And some of the big companies that you've heard of historically were stock corporations. That allowed people to pool their investments. So if you want to do that, if you're looking for a host of other investors, the traditional corporation is probably a better model for you because it's easier to deal with shares, deal with all sorts of the corporate formalities that having a larger number of owners entails. For a smaller situation, you might be looking at a limited liability company, the LLC, and that's normally what I preach to my clients. They are appropriate for anything from a local bakery to if you own real estate to really just about anything you can think of. If it's going to be you, maybe you or your spouse or a few friends starting a business, if you've just got a few members, that's really nice. There are some other structures. The sole proprietorship is really, it's not a business structure at all. It's when you just happen to have a business with your name on it, but you own it, and that's just a no-no because of the lack of limited liability there. As for the advantages, I started to touch on the advantages with a regular corporation. One of the things that, and when I say the laws were simplified, one of the things that has changed is taxation. A lot of people are rightly worried about taxes because you not only have to make money, you have to make enough money to pay yourself after you pay the government. So one of the advantages of the LLC is that it has what we call pass-through taxation. So if you work for IBM, huge company, IBM makes their money, they pay taxes on it. Then with what's left over, they pay everybody else. So if you work for IBM, you're getting paid with money that's already been taxed, and so the money that you're getting is essentially double taxed. Now that's fine for a big company, but if you own the company and you're paying yourself, you're paying double taxes, which people don't like to do. So one of the advantages of an LLC is what we call this pass-through taxation. It's simply filed as a schedule on your tax return, and it's treated just like regular income. You don't have to pay taxes on it twice. Now, you do have to pay out the Social Security and all that fun stuff, but you avoid the double taxation. One of the things that's made it a little bit simpler for corporations is something called Subchapter S, which allows corporations to also elect this pass-through status. Now, this has to be done under a host of certain special circumstances. It has to happen within a certain amount of time, and there are a whole host of limitations that are going to apply to the business. But it also has the benefit of pass-through taxation. Another structure, not used as much, except perhaps in professional situations, so lawyers, accountants, are partnerships. Partnerships are kind of like a joint sole proprietorship. They can provide some limited liability with the limited partnership laws, but I would say that most folks are going to want to look at setting up either an LLC, a regular corporation, probably with a Subchapter S election, or in certain cases, professionals might want to look at the professional corporations law, which a lot of folks use to supplant the partnership.
Sure. So how about kind of on the opposite end of that? What about for a nonprofit?
Sure. Well, nonprofit is something, Muscatine has a great tradition of nonprofits, and I think when people hear nonprofits, they think, oh my gosh, I'm setting up this huge foundation that has to have millions of dollars. No. I had someone who came to me, a very nice lady, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to plug, so I won't, but she helped hook up young mothers, maybe single mothers or folks who are in need, with basic necessities, cradles, diapers, formula, which is a big deal now. And she just wanted to set up a nonprofit to do it, and we were able to help her. So Iowa has a nonprofit corporations law. The process is very similar. You have to do a lot of the same documentation, but the extra step is getting that tax exempt status. Now, that's what most people, if you've heard of a 501c3 company, that refers to the code and section of the Internal Revenue Code. But basically, those are advantageous because donations up to a certain point to those companies are tax deductible. Now, in order to qualify for that, you have to go through an application process, which, because it's the IRS, a lot of people might be afraid of, but really it's not that hard. In fact, I don't even do all the paperwork on a 501c3 application. I'll sit there and guide the client through, but they can really do most of it themselves with just some pointers. So nonprofits are a great way to give back to the community, of course, but a lot of folks don't know a nonprofit, just because it's not profit doesn't mean it doesn't make money. You're just not looking to make a profit. You're not distributing that out to shareholders. So nonprofits have employees or can have employees. So, if you have a nonprofit business, you can pay yourself in order to do the nonprofit if you're taking in enough funds. So now there are all a host of other tax regulations, which are kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about here, but it's a very prominent thing. We do quite a bit of that, setting those up for folks.
Sure, and I know I've been a part of a few startup nonprofits that really, it hasn't been too terrible to be able to work through that process, especially if you have a good attorney on your side. But now when we look about different types of businesses, how about, let's look at examples like a bakery or a boutique versus something maybe like a service-based company or a technology company. What kind of structures would be best for those different types of businesses?
Sure, well, that's a great question. I think consultants and advisors who help folks set up small businesses tend to focus in three major areas. You have what they call your lifestyle businesses, then you have your more traditional small businesses, and also you've got kind of your high growth businesses. The lifestyle business really is if you have a business, maybe not even any employees perhaps, but you're doing it to employ yourself. Someone who works out of their home as a consultant, or works remotely, or basically does enough to earn money to provide a living for themselves and their family. That's one type of business, and for that, that's the one that probably needs the least amount of protection just in general. An LLC is almost certainly fine for that. And the reason I say the least amount of protection is because these businesses don't tend to have a physical location. They don't have customers coming in and out. So the chance of Hannah's palm tree falling on your head is not very great. That being said, there's still certain types of businesses where you might be self-employed, you might be the only employee, but you want to watch out for liability. But in any case, an LLC is probably your best option there. Same thing is really true for the small business, the second type. And this is what you would think of, kind of your quintessential storefront. We've helped set up quite a few of those in Muscatine, and it's nice to see. Again, I'm not going to name names, but a certain bakery we just helped open up over here, not too far away from here where we are at the community college. Great stuff, by the way. So they have a few employees, and it's a lady who had kind of a business she ran in her home. She decided, I like baking. And people said, hey, you're really good at this. You should keep doing it. And so 12 years later, she decided to open up a business and have a whole storefront and do the whole lease thing and make it really official. So an LLC also works really great for that, whether you own that by yourself, with your spouse. We can really generate an operating agreement. And that's really, the operating agreement is where you really kind of set forth the rules. You might think of it as like bylaws for the company. That structure works really well. It's incredibly flexible, and it's incredibly easy to maintain and administer. Now that last type, the high growth, is a business that you're kind of expecting, by virtue of the definition, to grow. Whether that's a tech startup or a manufacturing company, something that it probably is going to be designed to grow and become more complex. Now, an LLC structure can work there. That's not to say that it can't. And in fact, in some of these more complex corporate structures, you'll see a corporation owns an LLC that holds a share in a trust, which has got part of a partnership. Don't need to worry about all that. Either an LLC or probably an S Corp, as we call the subchapter S, or even a C Corp, has certain advantages in those situations. And that's just something you need to figure out with your lawyer, depending on the type of business you're using. So whether it's lifestyle, small business, or those high growth, in addition to the nonprofit, your lawyer can help you decide which structure is best for you.
Great. So then once that business type is selected, what does an entrepreneur need to make it official? So thinking about filing paperwork with different entities such as the county, state, all that.
It's a good question.
And stuff that starts to get a little bit harder for those small business owners.
Right, because you're in business to be in business, not to do paperwork. So that's one of the reasons you go to a lawyer. So to make it official, and I'll just walk you through the formation of, let's say, an LLC. Somebody comes to me. The first thing we do, we've got to check for conflicts with any client. That's any attorney's going to have to do that. But assuming there's no reason we can't represent the individual or the people who want to form the company, they'll tell us what they want to do, and I'll say, well, what name do you want? That's you wouldn't believe how much that trips people up. I hadn't really thought of that. So some people get creative and say ABC, whatever. We've had some really interesting names. People put combinations, but we have to check with the state database to make sure that name's not taken, and also it can't be too close to another name, or the state will say, yeah, I don't think so. So when you get the name, we search it. And then we file what's called articles of organization for an LLC, or incorporation for a regular corporation. And that's a one-pager, sometimes two. Basically, it says the name, the purpose, and don't get too hung up on the purpose. Most people just say, for any legal purpose. You can actually put that. They do frown on illegal things. So you put that, you put the address of the registered agent. That's generally your attorney, or there are companies that do that. And that's a person who can take official mailings for your company in case you get sued or something like that. And then the name of the person who's organizing it, as well as some of the initial people who are forming the company. So you file that with the Secretary of State. You can fax it in, you can email it in, along with an entry fee. And from the time you fax it in, then you're official. But that doesn't mean you can start doing business. What you need to do then is get a tax identification number. This also is one of those steps that by itself is pretty easy, but can easily get lost in the shuffle. So we can do that for you. We just need your Social Security number, because it has to be linked to a particular Social Security number, at least at first. And then we put together those documents I told you about, the operating agreement. If it's a corporation, we're going to do bylaws. The way in which each of these companies is owned is through shares of stock. And so normally you just write that down on a ledger, but sometimes folks like us to print out a certificate on big fancy paper. So I have my share of stock. Like Green Bay fans I've seen do that with they own part of the Packers, which could be good or bad depending on the season. But it's a neat thing. It kind of gives people that official feeling, and so that's something we enjoy doing. And from then, if your bank needs something from us, if it needs additional documentation, we're happy to provide that. But then really all you have to do to maintain that structure is a couple things. Every year or every other year, depending on the type of company and the business you're engaged in, you have to file a report. And that report can be as simple as a 1 or 2 pager, basically saying the company's still going. Excuse me. And the other thing that you need to do is what we call observing the corporate formalities. So all that limited liability protection I talked about, that doesn't really exist unless you take the company seriously. So if I start a company, but I'm using it to buy myself, whatever I want, I treat the money like my own little slush fund, and I don't keep it separate from my own personal accounts. A court, if you're going to get sued, is saying, well, you're not keeping it separate for yourself. I'm not going to keep it separate for, the guy's palm tree hit in the head. So you've got to observe those corporate formalities. We instruct you on how to do that. And we prepare minutes for annual meetings, direct you on what you need to have and the like. So it sounds like a lot. It's really a lot more words than it is action. And so it's easier done than said.
Sure. So does that cover all of the paperwork or legal agreements that we need, or are there a few more things that small business owners would need to file after all of that?
Sure. A lot of people want to conduct business in a name other than the company. Or if they have a couple of different products, they can file what's called a DBA, or a doing business as. You're going to need to do that with both the Secretary of State, and there are some things you have to register with the county recorder as well. If you're a sole proprietorship, or if you have a trade name you're using in that county, they want to know that as well, so we can help you with that. And then on top of that, and I don't know if you want me to talk about this, but there's a few basic things that most, or a lot of businesses anyway, need to do, and probably the thing that we help folks out most there with is a lease. Because a lot of these businesses need a physical location, and they're either buying property, which is not likely right off the bat, or they're leasing something. So you want to make sure you have an attorney look at the lease so that you're not promising your firstborn to anyone. And the attorney can generally do that. We have a lot of boilerplate forms. So that's something that we are happy to help with as well.
Sure. And then can you tell us what working with an attorney looks like, what people can expect?
Sure. Well, I've been discouraged by the partners in my firm from setting out a tip jar at our front desk, but seems like a good idea to me. Now, working with an attorney, it really depends on the attorney. Everybody's got a different style. But what it should be is a conversation between you and someone who knows how to get you where you want to go. For instance, in our office, you come in, you sit down. Well, first of all, you'll contact our switchboard and say, hey, I'm interested in starting a company. They'll route the call to me, and I'll say, hi, how are you doing? And we'll set an appointment. You come and talk to me. The first 30 minutes are free. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Some attorneys do that, some don't. I've just found it's more helpful to kind of get people in the door. And sometimes I meet people and they tell me what they want. And I say, well, I really can't help you. But most of the time, we say, hey, well, here's what we'd like to do for you. Here's the steps we take through. Here's about what it would cost, depending on everything they need done. And they say yay or nay. And if they say yes, when we send them an agreement. It's what we call an engagement letter. It's basically sets forth, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to charge you. Here's your rights and responsibilities as a client. Sign on the dotted line, and then we'll get started for you. Sometimes we take a retainer, sometimes not. But that's really the whole process. And then, people call me when they've got a question. They say, well, I need this, and there's some really interesting questions you get. That's one of the neat things about being an attorney is there's always something you haven't heard yet.
I bet. Yeah. You've heard all kinds of interesting things. And I think it's great to point out that really working with an attorney maybe isn't as scary or intimidating as some people might think. And so it's great that they know that they have someone in their corner that can provide them the best possible expertise and guidance when it comes to making sure that they're covered legally for some of those incidences that we talked about earlier. So is there anything else you can think of that an entrepreneur or small business owner should know? Before we wrap things up.
There's plenty.
I'm sure.
But in terms of what an attorney can do for you, if you've got the idea, you're the engine. You're the economic driver. I tell people a good attorney is like a chauffeur, okay? It's your limo. You own it. You're my boss. You tell me where you want to go, and I say, yeah, maybe you don't want to drive through that neighborhood, but I'll get you where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And that's really what people should be looking for in an attorney. Not someone who is intimidating, not someone they feel they can't work with, and not someone who's necessarily going to charge them an arm and a leg, but somebody who, if you have a question, you pick them up and you pick up the phone, you shoot an email, and you ask. And that's really what we do. So it's not that there's anything you necessarily need to know beyond what we've talked about as an entrepreneur, but if there's something you don't know, don't hesitate to ask. That's the important thing, because I can't tell you the number of times I've gotten a question, what should I have done? And then sometimes it's a little bit too late to put the toothpaste back in the tube. But in most cases, people call us ahead of time, and we can guide them in the ways that makes both the most legal and the financial sense.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a lot of great information. And thank you for joining us and walking us through some of the legal basics of starting a business. Through expert help and advice, we hope that small business owners in the Muscatine area can use this information and that it makes the process less scary and feel a lot less daunting. So for the small business owners watching, thank you for tuning in, and don't be afraid to reach out to us at the Chamber. And we want to see you succeed in getting your business off the ground and making your dream a reality. So myself, as well as the other staff at GMCCI, are more than happy to connect you to the resources you need anytime, whether you stop into our office or give us a call. I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one to learn more about your business and help you navigate any step of the way, whether you're just starting out. Maybe we can connect you to other organizations such as SCORE, the Iowa Centers, or SBDCs, or even if you're halfway along that journey to starting your business. We also do have some valuable resources on our website at muscatine.com. At the top of the page, under the Do Business tab, click on the Business Services, and there you can download our Starting a Business Guide in Muscatine, and that has contacts of people actually in our community that you can reach out to for more assistance. And I also encourage you to check out our Smart Start dashboard. So this is also under the Do Business tab on our website, and this is a free tool that Startup Muscatine and GMCCI has created for entrepreneurs. You can create a login, and the Smart Start dashboard will generate a customized roadmap based on you, your goals, and where you are in the process of starting your business. So we highly encourage you to check that out. Again, it's free, brand new tool, and we hope that you'll be able to use those resources. And if you have any questions at any time, just give the Chamber a call, and we'll be able to put you in the right place. As well as connect you to people like Nathan, accountants, marketing companies that can really help provide that specialized expertise. So lastly, stay up to date on all things Startup Muscatine by liking our page on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching.